Hi, I'm Kaylee and this is... Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Kaylee and I live in Central Florida with my husband and my 1-year-old daughter Lily. We have a dog named Lorelai. Yes, she is named after the Gilmore Girl, Lorelai. We live in Central Florida right next to Disney and we have annual passes, which is pretty fun. I like to read a lot and I decided that I would start a Booktube channel so I can meet other people who like to read as well. When I had my daughter, I noticed a significant change in the amount that I was allowed to read because I was taking care of her. And so now that she's 1, I've definitely started picking up full steam ahead. We moved recently from one house into like another area outside of Orlando, and I lost my book club, and so I kept trying to find one around here, but I didn't like any of the books they were reading, and so I decided, since I had such limited time to read, I was just going to read what I wanted, and I was going to put it on the internet and see who I could talk to about it, and maybe meet some other people who liked to read. I'm going to do one of those Booktube newbie tags to kind of introduce myself better to you. I'm joining you from Orlando, Florida, or close enough to Orlando, Florida. I'm 28 years old. I joined Booktube because I wanted to read books that I actually wanted to read and then talk to other people who also liked reading what I was reading. It's called Mama Reads because I'm a mom and I read, but it's also going to include books that I read and enjoy for the most part, but I thought it'd be cool to include maybe some of the books that I'm reading for Lily, some of the picture books or some of the other books that I want to eventually read to her. It's definitely opened my eyes to a lot of children's literature, so I thought I'd share that too. I read a lot of classics, and so I'm going to probably talk a lot about those, but I also read a lot of young adult contemporary books for the most part. It's what I tend to gravitate towards. I'll read pretty much anything or give it a shot. Things I don't like though are most of the time like high fantasy or mystery-ish kind of books. I tend to just gravitate towards things that are happening in real life. I have way too many favorite authors, but I tend to love the Brontes for their classic works. I think they're just such unique women for their time and wrote about really interesting concepts for Victorian era women. But I also love J.K. Rowling. I think she has a great imagination. Jane Austen, she's super witty. I have a lot of favorite authors though, so it's really hard to even say. Lily! Hi, baby! Keep pausing. The last book I read was A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is something that I've been avoiding for a super long time because I normally don't like fantasy or books about fairies, but I had so many people recommend it to me, so I finally read it, and I read it in a day. I am currently reading A Court of Mist and Fury, also by Sarah J. Maas, because I finished A Court of Thorns and Roses yesterday, and I'm almost done with it. I'm flying through these books. They're both so good. I use a lot of random things for bookmarks. It's usually whatever's closest to me at the time. I never will fold down or dog ear a page. I think that is like atrocious to do to a book. So I kind of just grab whatever's around. I've used like candy wrappers, Band-Aids, not used Band-Aids, but like I'll have one like in my nightstand, so I'll grab it. But lately I've been putting pretty paper clips that like I'll find at like Target's dollar spot. Like right now I'm using pineapple paper clips that are super cute, but it makes it easy if I have to stop like on mid-page, I can kind of put it right where I finished off, so it makes it really easy to jump back into a book. I definitely prefer hardcover. Like if money is not an option, I will almost always buy hardcover. I feel like they look prettier on a shelf, they tend to last longer, but lately I have been buying a lot of paperbacks. I actually just started buying the Penguin English Library editions, which are super hard sometimes to get here in the States, but I love the paperbacks altogether, how they look with their spine. I will always want a physical book in my hand. Can't get over the smell. I mean, I love the weight of it. It actually forces me to go through it. I fly through it a lot more. Or if I read my ebook, sometimes I get distracted by other things on my e-reader. But I definitely do use ebooks. I get them from the library a lot more than I do physical books from the library. because I find that they have more options as an ebook. So I definitely read ebooks, but I'll always buy a hardback or paperback. I borrow a lot. Money is obviously a thing that we have to consider, and books, although they're cheap, they tend to get expensive, especially when you love books as much as I do. So I have been borrowing a lot from the library, but if I love a book, I almost always will buy it in a hardback later to have. And especially with my classics, I use buying a book as a way, as like a reward sometimes to get through it, or to like motivate myself to finish reading it if I want to read something else instead. So I tend to buy really pretty hardback editions. So I definitely buy a lot of books. Books from when I was younger definitely what got me into reading. I loved anything with an adventure. Harry Potter, I grew up obviously as like the Harry Potter generation. I was the same age growing up with each of the books. I loved like Nancy Drew's mysteries. Babysitter's Club was like obviously a thing that like every girl read growing up. The American Girl books, when I was first learning to read, I remember like checking those out of like our school library and being so proud of myself when I could finish a chapter book in one day because they were so short. But I loved anything that like had an adventure. I really loved A Series of Unfortunate Events, and I actually am watching that right now on Netflix. I love as an adult being able to watch that now, and like my nieces and nephews will watch it and want to talk about it, and so it's super exciting to have read those books and I'll get to watch those with my nieces and nephews. I discovered Booktube because I love spoilers. In fact, I think most people hate that about me, is that I will always spoil a book, movie, TV show for myself. I have to know what's going to happen before I invest my time into it. And so it's really frustrating when I would go to the internet for a book summary, but like a detailed summary or spoilers, and most of the reviews say no spoilers, or when you go to Goodreads and they're hidden because of spoilers. And so I found that on Booktube, a lot of booktubers will do a non-spoiler section that's really short, summary, and then they do this thing where they're like, go away, I'm gonna spoil the book so we can discuss it. And I was always like, I'm not going anywhere, I'm gonna watch the spoilers. And so that's what opened my eyes to Booktube, but then it morphed into finding out like I could get great book recommendations or find prettier editions of books because people collected those on Booktube, or just some like really unique types of book tags that people were doing. It just ended up being this community that I like loved to watch. So far, the biggest challenge has not been laughing at myself the entire time I filmed this. I have my friend Erica here who's helping me, and I probably had a good 5-minute laughing fit just trying to calm myself down to start this. So I think getting used to talking to a camera is going to be really hard for me. You can find me on Instagram. I will leave my username down below. I'm going to also open up a Twitter eventually. I actually deleted my Facebook recently, so you won't find me on there, but hopefully I'll be other places. I think the fact that I'm a mom and often want to read books to my daughter is going to be an interesting thing to share in here. I haven't really seen much of that, so I'm hoping to contribute like a lot of tips I found reading to a child, and like how reading with her has like helped me expand my children's literature. I'm going to share a lot of picture books that I have read with her, and I don't think there is really a huge space for that on Booktube, so hopefully it'll help other moms. I'm really excited to meet friends and people who really just love books. I love books. It's kind of crazy, and so I think it'll be good to just share that love with other people, and just to get excited over when new books are coming out, or just new ideas that are going to be in books and talking about it. It really makes me happy, and so I think that's what I'm most looking forward to. I love reading because it can take your mind off of what's going on in your real life. You get lost in a story and in a new world, and it's really easy to just kind of step away and relax and like wind down from the stressors in your life. I think the biggest questions I would ask my favorite booktuber, which right now are Books and Quills and Read by Zoe. I've loved them from the beginning, but I think I would ask both of them, how do you get over the stage fright of the camera and talking to yourself? And then how do you keep it fun for yourself the longer you've done Booktube? I feel like when I blogged back in the day, the longer I went on, the more it seemed like a job, and I definitely don't want that to be the case for Booktube. So that's a little bit about me. If you have any questions for me or want to get to know me better, put your questions down in the comments. And if you are active on Booktube, let me know your biggest tips to help me dive into this and to find more people to connect with.